Thanks for coming here. It's good to see you all here. This is the day before study break starts, pretty much. So this is the what is this? The sixth installment of things that uni won't teach you. So this is going to be about how you build your first website, what tools are out there, and what you have to think about. So John has lots of experience in this. He's been working as a freelance web designer and app designer, and he's also the co-director of the Innovation Hub. So I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. Cheers. Yep, so thanks, Sam. I'm John, co-director here. Been more of an app developer really for the past year, but I've done a fair bit of web. And yeah, I guess today I'm going to talk to you about the wild, wild west of web and sort of give you some tools, mainly look at the tools that are out there, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have enough that you can go out there and easily make your own website. There's a lot of stuff out there, especially for students, which is really great, for free. So hopefully by the end of it you'll at least have two tools in particular which will let you go out and have your own .me account set up. So firstly, like who here is like potentially looking at making like a landing page, maybe for themselves or for a business? Yeah, a couple of you. Anyone looking at making like an informational sort of multi-page site, like blogging or anything like that? Crossover. E-commerce stores at all? Nope. And web applications like the next Instagram, Pinterest crossover, or like okay. You guys might have to talk to me a bit afterwards. This is more looking at like the base level stuff. Some of this will be applicable, but like there's a lot that is involved in like a full scale web application that will be like probably beyond the scope of this talk. But I'll be around here in the hub, so like yeah, I'm always up for talking about that stuff. Oh, and if you've got any questions throughout the talk, like in each slide, just put your hand up and we can go straight to it. So yeah. This is very, very basics, but like if you're going to make a website, these are the basic things you need. A lot of people really forget the first step of just having a domain name, and people think that if they buy a hosting plan that just instantly includes a domain name. So your www.coolsite.com. Yeah, generally the free plan I'm going to show you today gets the domain and hosting sort of in separate plans, and we link them up. But there are obvious, like I'm sure a lot of you would know about many plans that link these things together, like Squarespace kind of links your hosting and design together. There's groups like the Small Orange or Bluehost which link your domain and hosting together, and there can be advantages and disadvantages to that, which I'll go through. But yeah, once you've done all that, of course you want to stick up your content and have a fully working site, and then I'll go in afterwards to some analytics and search engine optimization that you can do to like really get the most out of your site and make sure that you're tailoring it to whoever you're presenting it to. Alright, so firstly, domain names. Biggest mistake I've seen as a freelancer is businesses making their website out of line with the creation of their business name and their branding. Like branding, your website name should effectively be in line with your branding. It's no good going off and getting a business name for Cool Business and then finding out you can't get coolbusiness.com or coolbusiness.io, what you actually want. Yeah, really important to do that sort of in tandem. There is an alternative that I've seen done a few times, but it's very hard to pull off, and that is that when you can't get your actual domain, you can't get your straight out business name, and that is creating some kind of clever name. I think one of the best ones that I've seen is, yeah, I'll just put it in, is a group called tractorbrewing.com, Tractor Brewing, and their website name is Get Plowed. And I think like as a marketing like name, it's completely different from their business, but it's still creative enough that you know that is who you're going to. That's a good example, but it's pretty hard to get right, and you really need to work with people to do that. But the key thing, make it unique and memorable and very simple. I'll go into later in the search engine optimization side, there are some mistakes you can make where there'll be competing businesses and you can have names that are very similar, and it will mean that you will probably never get the number. It'll be very hard for you to get the #1 spot in some kind of page rank because of that. And it's really good to do your research beforehand, before you go buying these names out. of course, like you can make an appropriate suffix. Really needs to be like dependent on what you're doing. Like if you're looking at making an not-for-profit.org, it's great. But yeah, that's something you can look up, and it's not too difficult. Yeah, here's just a few basics you can go to in terms of domain name services like Venture IP, GoDaddy. Small Orange is a US-based company, but they offer like really cheap domain name with hosting. Like I was saying, it's like a complete package, and then Namecheap's one we'll look at later, which is where you guys can get a free domain name. So
just on that, sorry.
Yeah,
so
sure.
When you purchase a domain name, what are you actually purchasing from these guys?
So you're sort of purchasing the name and sort of IP. Yeah. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
You're not purchasing like the space where you're actually going to be storing your site so much.
Yeah.
That gets covered in the hosting, and that's why you have to link these two up, because you can kind of have the name just sort of sitting there unlinked to anything, or you can have the storage there, so you've got all your site in that storage, but it's not actually linked to where people are querying.
Another question for you.
Yep.
.com.au versus .com. Obviously,
Yep.
Australian businesses want to have .com.au.
Yep.
But in terms of having .com as well, how advantageous is that?
Very end. If you can have both, like, great. But yeah, it's really depends on. I guess it really depends on what you're doing. I'd say like if you can get .com, generally it seems to be better. You end up just being easier to remember. People remember .com overseas, I'd say more than .com.au, but it's kind of dependent. I wouldn't say it's, at the end of the day, if you've got a really creative actual like name, that's probably the more crucial part to it, I'd say. But yeah. Yeah, hosting, when it comes to hosting, generally, by the time I finish this talk, I'm sure there'll be like another company out there with like an even better hosting plan than like some of the ones that I mentioned here. Really go out there and just have a good search. Generally, there'll be, again, like different advantages to different ones. Common ones like Bluehost, DigitalOcean, Small Orange, Net Registry is a really, really great Australian one. Generally, you can use a lot of tools online to figure out how quick like your ping times to a certain server, and the only other sort of figures you'd be really looking at least initially when you're making a small site, are really the storage. Generally, I'd say you're probably not going to have a case, and correct me if I'm wrong, correct me if you're in a situation where you need a lot of storage, but generally if you're making a small site, you want to be making it as small as possible and keeping like images or large files down. I mean, does anyone out of interest have a site that they're looking at creating that has like large media? Yeah?
Oh, it's already created, but...
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I think we run it through, I don't know, is the cPanel, is that something that's how it is?
Not so much.
Okay.
cPanel's a pretty common bit of interact.
I think it might even be Bluehost, I'm not quite sure. I should really check that.
Bluehost is could be the host. cPanel's more a piece of software that a lot of hosters will use to sort of like interact with your files and stuff. It's a really comprehensive piece of software.
Cool.
Generally, more money you throw at it, the more power you're going to get. And like, I don't think you'll be, if you keep with these basic ones, you'll be able to move on down the track, and you'll be able to, you'll probably end up changing up services anyway. Like it's yeah. Okay.
So just a quick question for hosting.
Yeah.
If I've got a website over in Australia
Yeah.
and I want to cater to Australian people,
Yeah.
would it matter if I host it with a company that is here or America?
It can matter, yes. It can be way better in terms of like your response times if you have servers that are here.
Okay.
And basically, like I'm not so sure about having American companies that have, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, that have servers here.
Yeah, so a Small Orange, you mentioned that was a
Yeah,
small
exactly.
one.
And
Do
so
they
like,
have servers in Australia?
they will have poorer ping times. The only reason I mention them is because they're quite cheap as a service.
Oh.
So like if you're just looking at making a small blog or whatever, they can be great because they're really, really cheap. And they incorporate both. But the reality is, if you want to be getting like the fastest kind of ping times, you might look at someone like Net Registry or like whoever. But yeah, I don't know if at these early stages whether that'll be super crucial. I guess if you're making a web app, that might be crucial down the track, sure. So, but web apps will also have different hosting services as well. That's why I'll have to chat to you guys later. So with design, to be honest, like, I haven't done any design courses myself. I've sort of been self-taught as I go. Generally, like, keep it simple, and especially if you're using like content management systems, they'll have a lot of things that will help you out like really easily. I'm sure some of you will be aware of like some of the tools that are out there. Nowadays, responsive design is a freaking must. Like, make sure that your site caters to mobile platforms. Like, if you're not doing that, then your site will be behind and people won't be using it because, yeah, I think everyone's probably had to deal with like some kind of telecom site that doesn't resize and have to fill in forms, and it is a pain. Other things you might want to consider are just generally, like, you definitely want to think about your logo and iconography as that scales, because a favicon is basically like if you're opening up tabs and whatever, the small logo that gets presented in the tab. And you have to provide a lot of different resources for that, but depending on what your logo is, that can scale very differently. You have to take a logo that you might have as like 1,000 by 1,000 pixel image and put it down to 16 by 16 pixels. You got to think, like, I think one of the best cases I've seen of this is like MailChimp. Their full logo is like of a giant chimp like carrying a bag, but their favicon is just with his head. And it's kind of thinking like what you're going to do that's still going to keep your brand like active there and recognizable, but yeah, but still be a 16 by 16 pixel image. Something else you got to think about is like nowadays iOS was kind enough to have this like retina image idea, and so a lot of your resources you can include as at2x. So basically it means if you had innovationhub.jpg, some image, you put innovationhub at2x.jpg and it will render it for retina devices and make it really pretty. You've got to think about it. Like, so for phones like this, the way off is that like it can take quite a while for it to download. So it can actually be better sometimes to put a poorer, well, it's frustrating because the guy with the iPhone gets a poorer, like it looks poorer, but it generally speeds up time. So it's kind of a thing you've got to think about. And then yeah, like in terms of just general design stuff, though Squarespace and WordPress can have some really amazing templates that you can use that can kind of shortcut that whole process. If you're not a designer, I really recommend just working with those, Squarespace in particular, just because they're straight off the bat. And then if you do need to customize, like you need to get a developer in later for whatever reason, those two are generally the easier ones to go in, apart from having a fully custom site that's been built from the ground up. And yeah, Twitter Bootstrap, if you're looking to get into coding at all, like just front-end stuff, is a great one to use as well, because you can get, I'll show you later, some really good downloaded templates and just play with them straight up in the code. In terms of content, I won't go into this too much, but like basically just keep it in line with your branding. Think of your website as a billboard. I'm still personally a bit unsold on like whether you need a lot. I've seen about huge about sections. Really depends on what you're doing again, but I'm still more sold on keeping things short and to the point. If you do that, people get directed to the pieces of content they're meant to be going to. If you've got a blog, they'll go to your posts. If you're selling a product, go to the products. If you waffle on with lots of other stuff, it will generally sort of block the user from going to what you're actually trying to do with the site. Keep it simple. Yeah, that's sort of self-explanatory. Okay. SEO. With your domain name, this is what I was talking about before. I've had a case in particular where I was working with a client who basically made their business name and their website name the pluralized version of a really major hotel chain. And they were just a small B&B. And I don't know if many of you know, like when you search that in Google, they'll chop off the plurals. And it basically means that you'll end up with, you'll end up searching for that hotel chain instead of the smaller one. So it's something to really, really consider. Make sure that you think about those things, how when a user actually goes through and searches for your site, how it's going to link up to you and whether you're going to get pushed down the rankings by another business that is already existing and very big. Sure, down the track you might be able to top them out, but like you got to think about the initial starts, and if you can't make that start, yeah, generally keep as many links to social media as you can, but be careful. I've seen that done really poorly, and you can end up, if not done correctly, making a lot of requests. Yeah, there's especially with WordPress, I've seen a lot of plugins that sort of throw a whole bunch of social media links, and if they're not used correctly, they slow down your site massively, which is actually counterproductive to the whole search engine optimization side of things. And then, yeah, generally adding as much new content as possible is really, really good to that side of stuff as well. And include meta tags. The issue is meta tags have kind of been down, they're important to include. They're a bunch of tags you can include in the header of your website files that will sort of tell a crawl what your site is all about. And including them is really important, though they've been downgraded because they've been abused in the past. There's things like keywords which people abused with putting, if you were a hotel, they'd put hotel every synonym of hotel, and it would basically be this giant tag, this huge list of keywords, and that did actually boost them above other people. So it became this battle of creating this giant list. But Google's changed that and is focusing, well, search engines are changing that and focusing more on how much content you're creating and how much that content is being linked to other sites. Yep.
I've heard that URL structure and kind of what you put in your title is a big part of SEO. Can you tell us maybe what a good URL or a good title looks like?
A good title?
Yeah.
As in as in a good title tag?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically whatever the name of your site is. I guess I don't know, would you say otherwise or?
Yeah, I was
yeah.
I guess as a default, WordPress has the URL as yoursite.com/p?equals1234 as the URL for the page, whereas a good URL for SEO is yoursite.com/3 big hints for public speaking, and that's the title of the post.
The title of the post, yeah, for sure. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought you were talking sorry, my bad. I was hearing the title of the whole site, not the title of the post. Yes, that makes sense. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
With those meta tags there,
yeah.
So does that same apply for when you're doing tags for a post? So say you've got a blog and you're posting.
Probably not so much. I think there are increasingly more kinds of tags that are coming out, but I think the main one is just to get your main page stuck with those. You can easily search up a few of those, and you just include them in the header of your main pages. Yeah.
And your blog will normally handle that, right? WordPress will handle all the meta tags.
It can do. It's it generally does. Yeah, but it really does depend. If you don't, I know for Squarespace, for example, when you start it up, it sort of asks you what kind of business you are, and I'm fairly sure it adds some meta tags based on whether you say you're an e-commerce site or whatever. But it also, I think if you want really good refinement, you should go over the code yourself to actually do it, or get someone to help you out and go over it and include those other tags. But yeah, it depends on what platform you're using. And again, I think, WordPress, there's plenty of tools that you can use to go over that in a fine-tooth comb if you don't want to go over the actual code yourself. Okay. Google Webmaster is your best friend if you want to be using it just to bump up your rankings. Recent things I've found that were pretty interesting, the sitemap.xml is something that sort of comes up, which is you can, when you bring it up, go into Webmaster, and it will ask you for you. No, great. Are we having internet problems?
I don't think so.
No?
Should be right.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so you can submit your whole website to sitemap.xml generators. It will generate one, and you grab that file, and you can put it into where your website hosting is, and it'll help Google index your pages, and it'll be really, really helpful. The things I've sort of noticed, in my main projects that have helped a lot in terms of boosting SEO in that, and basically linking accounts to Google-based things, so like Google+, like having your location there. And then the recent one that I hadn't actually seen until researching for this was the data highlighter that they've included, which lets you basically lets you go over sections of your site and highlight key parts of it, like in a graphical view. And yeah, you can sort of go over any kinds of products, and they'll actually come up within Google's searches. So like if you had a list of events, for example, within your site, you can highlight that. It'll start to recognize it and pick it up as like within somewhere when someone's searching. So like it gives a lot more detailed information. You can do it on products as well. Google start to recognize it and include it, and that really can just make your site pop out like when it's getting searched. Yeah. Okay. Performance. You can go into extreme detail with this. Main one again that I've used in the past is Google Page Speed Insights. You can basically just throw your URL at it, and it will give you so that's the previous site I was showing you before. It will give you like a good indication of any performance problems you've got. They can affect your SEO. It'll give you a good indication of like whether you can reduce image file sizes. It's not a hard line answer. They'll say that if you get a score over 85, that's pretty good, but some of the time there will be issues that cause a score to go down, but your performance will actually be better. Like one of the other things that I'll mention now is using a content delivery network like Cloudflare can increase your performance a lot, helps cache sites, but quite often you can use that and it'll decrease your page speed ranking. And a lot of people think, oh, okay, well, why am I using it? But like you go and actually check the performance through some development tools and it'll be better. So there's a few other things there: image reduction, minification, code changes that can increase your performance. Generally, like that can be, if you're interested in learning how to code, like you can get in there and have a bit of fun. But otherwise, yeah, find someone else to help you out either way.
So what is a content delivery network? What is that?
It's sort of it's a way of like distributing content down different lines. You basically can, it does that. The Cloudflare that I mentioned there does a number of things. In short, it will increase performance time, and it will potentially distribute attacks to your website as well. That can be, and that's something else, can be a good thing and a bad thing. Generally it's good because it means if you're getting, like, if your site is getting DDoSed, if someone's people are spamming it, it can actually distribute out that problem, but it distributes it out so everyone in the network can be affected by it. That's the one complaint I've heard about them, but again, early days, it's probably not likely to happen to your site, but it is something to consider down the track as to whether you want to use it. Other considerations, analytics. They're bloody great for knowing like your users. A/B testing in particular. If you're starting up a business tomorrow, if you're doing like some of these startup competitions, it's really great to use some of these just to just to test out different designs for the same site and see where people are going down, like what people are actually hitting, whether you're getting more users through one design or another. And then, yeah, for mail services, if you want a really good free one, Zoho.com is bloody great. Alright, cool. Are there any more questions at all? No. I'll just show you guys a couple of the tools that I've been playing around with that I reckon are pretty good. Like Instapage is probably one of the best landing page A/B testing kind of pages I've found for free. The disadvantages for it are A, that you don't get mobile.
Yep. Are you recording your screen?
Oh, no, I'm not. Do that really quickly.
Yeah.
So I can't create a new page, but if you want to follow along at all, these are just create a quick account and you can jump into it. But yeah, the main advantage of this that I've seen is that you can. So this is one that I've just been playing around with earlier. You can. That's odd. Oh, that's why. Yeah, you can create your page and then you can create variations of that page, shuffling around the elements. And that means that you can then submit different pages to different groups of people and figure out like which one they're hitting more. It's really, really good for testing out designs at an early stage. Down the track, probably not so much if you're, depending on what you're doing. Other things that's great about it is you can just easily add like a lot of the basic stuff that you want to add, like the SEO tools, and anything else that you want. Another one, if you're looking at getting into a bit more of the design, is start Bootstrap. Bootstrap's a really common template used by a lot of developers, but there's actually can now have like full templates that you can just download and get straight into, and they often will plug into a lot of the common services that you'll use, like don't have it here on this one, but they've got like Ghost, which is a common blogging platform, Jekyll. There's also a few of them that work with WordPress, so like it's really, really handy. Yeah, great for a landing page. For larger sites, this is probably the one, a while back I wouldn't have recommended as much, because you get to a point and you want to customize and you can't, and it's with Squarespace. But nowadays they've got a developer mode, and it basically means that you can switch that on and developer can access all the files of that site, add extra animations if you want to throw something onto your logo, do clever stuff, which, yeah, otherwise previously wasn't, as far as I know, wasn't as readily available. But you simply just get like go straight into it. I think their like lowest cost pricing is like $8 a month. That includes the hosting of it as well. You probably have, I think you can get domain names through them as well, but if not, like that's possibly like another few bucks on top of that. So it's not really that much in the scheme of things to be paying for a website, considering some of the hosting plans you can get here in Australia. Like it's pretty decent. But yeah, if I just sign in real quick. Whoop. Hopefully that loads. Yeah, and you go through this, what I was talking about before. You can select an option for like what your site's going to be. Say you want to do an e-commerce site, hit next, put in your title. You can throw in some extra information. My computer stops being really slow. Yeah, it'll load up. This normally loads at like a full desktop resolution, but because of the projector, it's like squished it down. But yeah, so it's showing the mobile version of this, and it gives you like a really nice straight up template that you can play around with quite nice effects. You can change the design really easily. E-commerce side of stuff, you can scale up quite easily with it. I think like their worst plan, like their most intense plan is still, I think, $20 a month, $24 a month. But the bit I was talking about that I think is what has sort of changed it for me is in getting used is that you can go into your advanced parts, go to a developer mode and turn that on. They warn you that you may break this very easily, but generally they've provided it in such a way that you know where their parts of the code are and where yours are, which is, I don't know, comparing to some WordPress sites I've played with, like that can be a huge issue and you can break things even easier. But yeah, so it's, bam there. And you see like a whole bunch of history and things that mean, for me as a developer mean a lot and mean that I can go in and customize it quite nicely. And yeah, it's quite simple, I think. It'd probably be one of my first choices if you were going to go and create something, but it's also got the price hit on top of it for something so easy. Cool. Any questions on that at all? No. This is something that was, I think, came out last year, but education.github.com. And this is an education pack for developers. I've got it here. You can get your pack. You literally just need to provide your student email, and the two services that you can use are DigitalOcean, and you get free credit with that, and you can use Namecheap, which gives you 1-year domain name registration with a .me site. Namecheap I found have been really, really great. If I jump over to here. Whoa. Anyone got a business name that they're starting up?
Yeah.
Yep.
Boat borrow.
What was it, sorry?
Boat borrow.
Boat borrow. Yeah, .me's there, .com is taken, but like they give you some other alternatives as well that I think on a lot of other services you don't necessarily see. .website and .club.rocks might probably not be so appropriate, but I don't know, it's like you never know. Some of them can be pretty good depending on what your branding is. Yeah, so generally what you can do that search on Namecheap. You can add it and complete your order, and then you can get your .me straight away. Once you've done that, you need to go into Namecheap. This is just my example, but you sort of set up an account, you sign in, manage domains. Oh, great. Yeah. Go to the domain that you've registered, and you can set up the domain name server. And when you go to DigitalOcean and set up an account with them, they'll provide you with these name servers. I'm fairly sure they'll be pretty well the same, but yeah, they'll provide it to you, and you just stick them in there. It might take a bit of time for them to validate it. Once you do, you've hooked up your .me to your hosting, and then once you've done that, yeah, if you you've created an account with DigitalOcean, you'll be able to see your site up on DigitalOcean.
So what's the name server? What does that do?
So
what's the name server doing?
I think that's sort of what I mentioned before, but it's sort of providing your domain name. That is the main part. It is, and then the hosting is more where you're actually storing your files, and you're sort of linking your domain name server to your host, and then you can get your files served up.
So you rent your domain name for a year at a time, is that what it is?
it really depends. For this one, yes, like they've given it to you for free for a year, but it can change. It really depends on like who you go with. They'll have different plans. Yeah. The thing that is really great about this group though is that you can actually go in, change your settings, and so you can set up a system using WordPress, save an image of that under snapshots, and then you can say your mate wants to make you a Django app that's way more complicated that you want to switch out for later. The way that they've done it just makes it really simple. You just click a button and switch it out, which is great for things down the track. It's the kind of thing of like you can have your front page up, you can do it in WordPress, or you can do it in what you want to do, and then the time comes when the app's at a certain level that you really want it, and you can switch it back out, and it will sort of work on the second. You might, I don't know, depending on what you're offering, you might want to tell people that's happening, but yeah, if I had any snapshots, I'd have to turn it off to do it, but then I could restore it. Yeah, I can restore from like a basic Linux one that I've got backed up. It's just a really, really great, it's a pretty great host. Yeah, the domain name server part I was talking about as well is up here, and you can go grab your bits from there. No, it's not in there. Yeah, you should be able to search that up, but it's basically in there. E-commerce, like I was showing you before with Squarespace, I'd really recommend that. The only limitation on that, like, is that, yeah, there's possibly, if you've got a lot of products, like, you probably have to go towards the more expensive one, but I mean, that's at the end of the day like $20 a month, and if you're making a decent amount selling your products, it's not too bad. Yeah, I'd say that's really about it. Anyone got any questions? Yeah, sure.
It's not really a question so much.
Yeah, but
depending on how much like lock-in you want to get, Amazon Web Services does have a lot of these things. Like you can get domains through that they have Graph 53, which is the TNS service as well. I can't remember Cloud. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, the CDN as well. Yeah, just means there's a free trial for a year, I guess, after that. If you want to stay with them, you'll have everything with them. So
yeah, and that is definitely something to bear in mind with a lot of these things, is like that quite often they will, if these all-in-one services, like where you get everything done for you, is that they will try and sort of lock you into that plan as much as possible, and that's kind of like as much as you can hold on to your content, and it can be a good thing down the track basically. But at the same time, depending on what you're doing, like Amazon Web Services can provide some pretty amazing services sometimes, and so like you might have excellent reason to stay with them. It's really important to just analyze your choices and what's going to be the most cost effective. But yeah, that is another service. There's also another one called Heroku.com, and they do a similar development-based service. Yeah.
Can you buy a domain name instead of having to rent it every year?
It's a good question. I'm fairly sure. No, and as far as I know, I haven't seen it where you can. But yeah.
Is it because they have to keep it in the registry or something like that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they've got to maintain costs somehow. Like, it's going to get a point where everyone, you know, hypothetically, everyone has every domain name. Like, yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, cheers. All right.
So I'm sure John will stay around for a while, so if you've got any questions, you can just ask him. So thanks for coming. We run these every Thursday, as I'm sure most of you would know. We also run the lectures at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. We're going to be taking a week's gap over the study break, because I think you all guys will be gone studying, hopefully. But we'll be back the week after that. So thanks for coming.